you want me to intro? I mean, it makes sense since I haven't been around for a bit.
You should do it.
Okay, I'll do it. Okay, okay. So we have. Sounds like you and Sandy were really busy last week, and there's a bit of crossover. We're going to recap some things, but there was some changes to the private managing discovery of private teams. We'll get into that. There is some things you might want to let people know about the Office 365 account manager experience, though we don't know what it looks like yet. And there's been a few updates for the shifts within Teams. Let's rock on, hey bro.
Do it.
Yeah, I must remember to get that file to you. Occasionally, Daniel and I would swap the role around of who does the live streaming. And of course, Dan did a great job from SharePoint
Well,
Fest DC. Well, as best as you could with the gear that you had, right?
yeah, sorry. So those of you that tried to join me live when I was broadcasting from SharePoint Fest last week, sorry about that. Something was going on with YouTube or the stream, or so it wasn't available live, and then YouTube caught up and the video was available. But then when it was, you noticed we had a little bit of audio issue because we didn't have a plug to go into my laptop for the mics. So anyway.
Mm,
Sorry about the audio. Turn it up a little bit, and you could feel like you're at the conference. That's what it was. I wanted you to get this,
yeah,
feel like you were
ambience.
immersed
Yes, that's
in
it.
the conference experience. That's what it
Yeah,
was.
no,
But
nicely
we had a
covered.
great time. Sandy was a great co-host, and we had a great time. So I hope
Yeah,
you liked the episode. We had a gazillion updates. So
you did, and you marched on through them. And thank you so much, Sandy, for joining and keeping Daniel company
yes,
there
thank
and
you.
covering for me. You did probably a better job than I would.
Oh
And
no,
look, the other the other
I'll
thing
take
is
it
like
back a little bit.
she's doing a great job running the Power BI. Power BI? No, the Flow.
Flow.
Yep. What's the name of the show again?
It is. Oh my goodness, you're going to put me on the spot.
I
The
did.
Flow Show. I think
Yeah, that'll
something
do
like
it. Flow
that.
show.
I'll
That's
get it in a
it.
second.
That's good. Thank you, Sand. No, look, check out that show. We will
Hmm.
drop the actual link to it in the show
Flow
notes.
Pro Show.
Flow
Flow
Pro Show.
Pro Show.
Flow
See, I
Pro
knew it was
Show.
Flow Show. I just can't. Okay, Flow Pro Show.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Thank you for the live audience that chimed on in there and let us know that.
Yep.
um, yeah, thank you for covering. Look, we have a few updates, but I know I in the prep I did forget what you may have covered because we did it on a different day of the week, and so I started reading
Mm.
up on some updates that you'd already covered with Sandy. But there was one I wanted us to start with because I
Okay.
found it kind of interesting. And I've done some dismissing of the messages that you did cover for the most part. But you
Yeah.
will notice there are a couple of major updates
Yes,
that
there
are
are.
screaming on out to us to take a look at. So we'll work our way through
We'll
those.
talk.
But for
Yeah.
now, we'll just collapse that. Get into one that you finished on, which was information barriers. Um,
Hmm.
Now in preview for Microsoft Teams. Now,
Hmm.
Sandy and yourself got into discussing what information barriers was and potentially the industries where that might be useful. What did you come
Well,
up with?
just talking about the need for having ethical walls to say certain people within an organization not being able to communicate with others within the
Mm,
organization. So this could be. We were just thinking about what that audit or legal implications that you might have. So that may be typical situation where you want ethical walls to just barriers where I as a worker don't need to, nor do you want me to, being able to communicate with certain other individuals. It's just not there's no business purpose. So, and
mm.
I think you really had a good example of,
Yeah,
basically corporate and then and others. So,
yeah. You will
okay.
find some of those structures where the first line workers are they don't engage so much in the work, and there's actually a good reason to keep them very separate from the corporate environment. And so in this case, I guess this is where it comes into the discussion. Information barriers for teams is what this message is about, and it's preventing people from being able to chat, being able to look up certain
Mm,
information, And that's in the case that if you're all one big happy family, but you're supposed to be acting separately, ethically,
Right.
and you're on the same infrastructure and the same tenant, then if you choose to use Teams, these barriers are here for you. There are ways to construct those barriers with Exchange, with certain mail flows and making sure that mail doesn't go that way. But it all kind of feels so tokenish. Like,
Okay.
if you can walk down the hallway and talk to these people, or there are ways to give them a call and stuff like that. I'm sure, like in the industries that this is targeted for, those sorts of bases are all being covered. But it just feels like, why don't you just have your own tenant? Why go through all these other things to separate it with software and features? Why don't you just get your own tenant? What do you think?
I think, reason that you might not want to get your own tenant is if you what if you do want to share some resources across, it's not that you want to prevent, maybe there are some things you share, I don't know, then if you do have a separate tenant, then you're going to have to license people in two different tenants legally, because they're part of the same company. So maybe that's the reason why you wouldn't want to do that. Or maybe it's just this isn't like there are situations where you need ethical walls, especially when you're talking about maybe companies that are sister companies that are managed totally separate and they're not supposed to talk. I'm thinking about in the financial world and such, they're not supposed to talk.
Exactly.
Well,
that
but
seems
they
to be
are
where
part
it
of the
was
same
driven from.
Right. Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. So I think that is really kind of where you might not, but it may not be that you have to prevent it's a huge group of people. It may just be you just have a handful of people that you don't want to talk to the rest of the company, right? So it's not I'm blocking off hundreds of people from talking to hundreds of people. I don't know, but maybe so. I just think it gets really complicated when you're bringing these information barriers in. And so one solution may be get a different tenant, but then you get other complications is what I'm trying to say. That was a lot of words to try to say.
It was, I guess. But
Sorry.
Maybe, I think that this scenario's come up too, where maybe it's a really large corporate company and they need to provide an information or communication barrier so that executives and the senior leadership are not directly in touch with and can't be IM'd and the like within Teams. And I know that that's been achieved to some degree sometimes in the way that Skype was created and constructed and configured. But perhaps that's another use case for it.
Maybe.
Yeah. But I just thought I'd revisit that one because I thought that was interesting. Yeah. And look, to me, immediately it said silo, but it's an intentional silo that, if there's a good reason for it, my question was, surely they're going to be that pedantic enough to go, well, fine, let's just get a separate tenant altogether. Anyway, we'll see how that plays out. Yeah. Moving on up, we have a manage the discovery of private teams in Microsoft Teams. How do private teams currently operate?
Well, right now they're discoverable, so you can see them in Teams to try to join them. And so with this change, right, they're saying as a team owner you can turn that off to where it can't be seen and be discovered. I thought this was interesting to see this, Darrell. I was like, oh wow, this is taking it off the grid, right, to make it private, and then I thought, well, but what about the resources? Because Teams is a communication platform for instant messaging, for meetings, right? But then pretty much all the other features are powered by other tools.
Yeah. Right?
Files and sites and et cetera, et cetera. So calendaring. So how's that all work? And I think that's where this gets interesting, that this is really just talking about Teams. And when you're in Teams, to be able to see see the team that is private or not, right? That has
Yeah.
no effect on other Office 365 group services or settings.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's purely
so that
that.
was interesting. Yep.
Yeah. Actually, I read it. I read it the opposite. Maybe
Hmm.
I misread it, but I read it that when you create a private team, they're not visible, and it's the choice to be able to make it visible and discoverable. But I understand, and I like coming from an education background too. There are some needs to, when there's a team
Right.
that's related to, learning difficulties or getting additional support, but you don't necessarily want people to see, oh, you're a member of this, or that this team exists. That's
Yeah.
potentially a reason to hide it from what they call the gallery view when we go and say
Right.
discover teams and show me the teams that are available to join.
Yeah. So
Um,
any team created after the rollout will have the team discovery setting set as discoverable by default. So when you go to create a private team after the rollout, you will need to change it to make it non-discoverable.
right, right.
Yeah.
And if you don't make that choice while you're creating the team, which is often the case, people,
Right.
if they haven't been, clued up, or they're not using a custom system that provisions teams for them, that makes these choices based on
Yep.
templates, the choice or the change has to be made by an admin via PowerShell, not something you can go back and change after the fact.
Yeah, and I think this is like you were saying, they're non-discoverable now when they're
Mm,
created, but you know, you will get in a situation where they will be discoverable if you don't set it when you're going
mm,
through those changes. So I think this is definitely one of those where you do need to, and I like this section about what do I need to do to prepare for this change. It's not the simple, you don't need to do anything. Yes, you do. And we say that every week. Yes, you do. You definitely need to do this. I think
yeah.
for um, it's telling you if you have private teams that are not sensitive or highly confidential, they're actually recommending it to set it to discoverable. Um, and because if you think about it this way, it's the same situation we got into SharePoint sites before we had a really good search with SharePoint Home, and still we get into the issue is that I go in to create a new SharePoint site because I need it, not
Mm,
knowing that there's already a site for that exact same function
yeah.
already existing.
Yeah.
This is what they're saying, and I think this part of the driving force behind this is that it may be a private team, but why create five teams by five different people who are creating them for the same exact function?
Yeah.
And they just don't know the others exist. But this also gives you the ability for, highly confidential or sensitive teams to still be non-discoverable.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. Look.
how we oust the CEO, that team probably
Yeah.
should be private and
Yep. Or
non-discoverable.
or I like orange soda. And you might have a secret fetish for orange soda, and there's a few people that want to join you in that team. You give me that funny look. But when they hide that team, and there's another two or three people that find that they also have fetish for orange soda too, that is quite separately and undiscussed. Um, then look, the other thing about that, Daniel, is like when you go to create these teams, you have to work quite hard potentially to find different wording,
You
and
do.
when the obvious phrases are chosen, surely they come across it and go, oh, look, there's a team that already exists. But
Maybe.
maybe not.
Or maybe they go, huh, it won't take to what I called it, so I'm just going
Yeah.
to add something else to it. Or,
The Orange
you know,
Soda Recovery Support Group. Yeah. Every organization needs it.
yep,
But yeah, I can see reducing those duplicates super
yep.
important because it's the value in keeping the common groups together with a common interest, particularly around those common interest groups. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
How many times can you say common and interest in the same sentence?
I don't know.
Good
It's,
job, Darrell.
it's it's feeling a bit common, right? You're not
I don't
interested.
know, but if that's your interest,
You've lost interest. Um, Now, feature update. Office 365 Account Manager is getting updated. I know I had to check
yes, it is.
because I think, like, what is the Office 365 Account Manager again? Top right hand corner, signing on in, you see a few choices there about, and usually your face there as well. You'll get some different choices under there sometimes based on where you are and the context of where you are and what you're doing. But that is changing, and it says it's about becoming more consistent with other account experiences. I should be showing this update actually too in the recording, and there it is. Yeah. But when you click on through to try and find out what this is, it feels like it's something that I should be telling my people, especially if it's going to change.
Right.
And what do I find? Nothing. No screenshots. Just that it's going to be refreshed.
Right.
It's going to look pretty. New design.
We hope.
Yep. You can still get your Delve profile there. That's good. But what does it look like? Don't know.
We do not know. And this is one of those where we're getting the information, but we're not getting really too much information at all about what it's going to look like. So I think this is one for those of you that do keep up with the announcements to update your organizations and keep your users, up to date what's going on. Awesome. That's why we're doing this show every week. This is one of those that I think you're going to need to put a flag on and keep track of this so that when it does change, you can update your users with information about what are the differences. Because this is one of those where it does affect users. Users are going to be impacted with this. While it may not be a functional change, although we don't really know, it may not be a major functional change. It's going to be a look change, and you may have documentation and such. So here's an announcement where you don't need to do anything, but you actually do. I think you do need to keep in mind this, and so you highlighted there it's starting in late May. So we've got a month. Hopefully they'll give us more information before then.
Yeah. Now look, this though, I've got to say, this is one of those points where the cut and paste, what should I do to prepare? Kind of annoying because it's saying you might want to consider updating your training and documentation with what?
Right.
We don't know.
Right.
Keep an eye out. And I know that you and Sandy covered off some of these updates a bit earlier. I might see some of them. Oh no, they're coming up. I've got similar comments about some Teams updates, which felt a bit rushed.
Yep.
Speaking of which, you got this. Go ahead.
Well, time clock in shifts is this new feature. We've got this shifts in Teams, right? Really enabling our first line workers to see shifts and to exchange shifts and everything and manage
shifting away from staff
shifting their shifts. So this feature is being a time clock for shifts in Teams, and I think this there's not a whole lot of information here, but it sure is spaced out nicely.
Yeah.
They hit enter twice there. So we don't have a lot of information about what it will do.
We've got an additional information link.
We do.
Here it is.
So what we have in the roadmap is...
Oh, all right. We should go to the roadmap first. I'm sorry.
What we have in the roadmap is that it will allow you to clock in and out of their shifts and breaks on their mobile device. And additionally, we can set up time clock using a geofence location, so you can collect GPS data to validate that someone has clocked in and out at the appropriate work site. So this is a little bit. I really like the being able to clock in and out on your mobile device. It's a little bit, I don't know if you set up geofencing, maybe not tell your employees that. I don't know. It just feels very
Big
very
Brother is
pushy,
GPR is
yes.
GSPR.
It just, but anyway, I mean, it's a good idea. If you're going to put it on their mobile device, you don't want them clocking in as they're driving to work, right?
Nope.
You want them to actually clock in when they're at work. So, anyway, giving us that capability. But Darrell, when is this supposed to be rolled out, do you think?
Well, it's soon, isn't it? Isn't it? It's like early May, which is now.
Now,
Completed by the end of May, which will be after now. Uh, okay.
yes, yes,
And look, we expect to see this landing now, anytime
now,
soon.
yeah,
Yep. Uh, let's go and have a look at what that additional information was. Sorry for jumping the gun earlier.
no
It's not
worries.
that. It is the Teams Help
Help Center.
Center standard page. Let's
Teams
go
is
into.
really usually pretty good about
Wait, hang on.
this.
I tried this earlier. I said shifts,
Okay.
shifts, shifts in Microsoft
Shit.
Teams. It auto completed for me. You see there, and it
Well,
actually.
that's awesome.
And what does it take me through to a Microsoft community, which I kind of forgot existed because I think tech community, but it's not. It's actually answers.microsoft.com. So yet another
Right.
place to ask you questions.
Yes.
And it's all just a bunch of people asking about this feature that's coming when everyone's moving from Staff Hub to Shifts.
Yeah.
Um,
Shouldn't this be searching tech community?
yeah, yeah, or at least both, bringing the
Yeah, at least
results in
both.
together.
But
Um,
obviously, yes. So
this is the
time
best
clock.
information.
This is it.
Yeah,
And do we have screenshots? Do we have? Nope. It's
no.
just hopefully, it'll be intuitive, which I kind of went on a little bit of a rant in one of my, not a rant, but, intuitive for me is not the same thing as intuitive for you because we have different experiences with different tools
Mm.
and everything else. So intuitive is not really that at all for anything in technology, unless it's just a big red button that says stop and that's all you have to push.
But
So,
that's only
you know,
intuitive if red actually means something in your culture. That usually means
correct.
stop.
See, there you go.
It's all about that, isn't it? It's kind of like the
Yes.
IQ test, which is based on what middle class male values and etc. Yeah, measure your intelligence by a sliver of what one
Yep.
society values.
So anyway, oh, that
Anyway,
was a tangent.
yeah.
Um, so the next one, still in shifts,
Yep.
Darrell, multi-team support. What do you think about this one?
Well, it actually, if we think about the scenario, that you could belong to a couple of teams, multiple teams, as a first line worker. I could be on the weekend shift. I could
Hmm.
be part of the management team for something, or I know that some teams work to cover sporting venues. Yeah, right, and
Yep.
that you might be assigned to a certain stadium to do your job, and then the following day another stadium. Anyway, all those sorts of scenarios. You could belong to multiple teams, and if you're
Yeah.
using shifts, this update will allow you to manage your shifts across multiple teams. Good.
So I ran into this when I was in high school. I worked for
Oh, a real example.
national
Thank you
a
for cutting in and giving.
national yeah a national pizza joint,
All right.
and I made pizzas,
Yeah.
and I on two occasions I was called at the store and asked to go to a different store, and because they had nobody working there really, so I had to go
Mm.
help. In both occasions, I had to go. They only had the manager; they had no workers for some reason, and so I had to come and do all of the anyway. So in that case, I would only be part of one team, my one store, right? That's where I normally go all the time. But if they wanted to schedule me for other stores because they needed coverage, because I was most senior after working 4 months or whatever it was,
Ooh, most senior.
that yeah, ooh, then be part of other teams, so I could schedule in other shifts. So
Mm.
I think this is actually makes a lot of sense when you
Yeah.
put it in that perspective of you have physical stores that manage shifts to coverage, but you have other stores and or other locations that could be covered, that may need to pull personnel back and forth depending upon
Mm.
different times of the year, for instance. So
Yep.
um, yeah,
Yep, definitely. Now, I actually don't need to do this because it's going to load the same link, but I'll do it anyway. Dun, 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 dun,
just to
dun,
prove
dun,
it
dun,
that
dun, dun,
that's
dun,
it.
dun, 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 dun. There it is. Clicked on that, and oh, okay, generic page again. Shall we search for no? It won't be there yet because we know that it goes to
Nope.
to that. But did we get more? Let me close some of these things down. Was there anything in here in a roadmap? There it is. Seems like the roadmap these days actually gives us a better starting point.
This one was good actually, to kind of give you an idea of what was going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here we go. Yeah, good.
It was added to the roadmap on 4/30, and then it was added to the message center on 5/1. For those of you that are keeping score, that's the next day. Wow. And then the announcement, it's rolling out in early May, which is now, which some would consider May 1st being early May. I don't know who that would be.
Road maps are like, because we go to like Google Maps or a physical map and we go, someone's created it, right? But this doesn't feel like a road map. This feels like walking up to Paddy in some remote place in Ireland and saying, can you tell me how to get to such and such? Well, if you see that little white picket fence down the road there, and it's a lovely place, go past the church there. Don't go down that road. What?
Are you going
what I
to
mean is instructions
of...
on the. I know it's a terrible Irish accent, but look, they've recently said New Zealand has the sexiest accent, and I've heard many people try to do it, and it just was not sexy. It was not. Okay, let's just leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this feels like it's a checkbox. They said, "Oh, we've got this new feature. Okay, we're going to roll it out. Oh, is it on the roadmap yet? Nope. Well, put it on there. Okay, now is it in the message center? Nope. Okay, well, put it on there." I feel like it was just this, we forgot to check those boxes. Because it was so quickly put out there.
The map is actually on a piece of paper that you've just written and saying, here, follow these instructions, you'll find your way. Yes. It's going to be arriving next week. Just look for it.
Yep. That's right. Good. Look for it.
Yeah. Sorry for the bad behavior today, everyone. Particularly my co-host Daniel. I really way off with my addictions to orange soda and bad Irish accents.
Okay. Yes.
Bad Irish accents. That's the name of the film too. Far and Away, I think it was in other markets.
Yeah.
Have you heard Tom Cruise try and do an Irish accent? Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Moving on, shall we? Yes.
Please.
Are we?
Please
yeah. Okay. Last
one.
Last.
This one is interesting, Darrell.
Yeah.
Because this is not talking about something being available, although it's general availability started. This is talking about, oh, by the way, if you click that button, what happens, Darrell?
Yeah, well, what is that button for starters? The button is the big shiny switch that says, you really want to try the new Outlook experience on the web. It's really cool. It's awesome. Join us. And
every once in a while, it grays out your screen and pops up a box and points to it and says, you need to click this button now.
Yep. However,
and if you do, what happens?
That's another movie. Sorry, I'm right on like that's the Good Morning Vietnam thing. If you do, you won't get to be able to use the share availability button in your email creations and responses. I send an email to Daniel. Daniel says, "Oh, I want to share my availability so that Darrell can choose the most appropriate time to meet with them." Oh, where's the button gone? It's not there.
So, do you think this is... I feel like this is one of those where they... did they roll something out that just broke the functionality? Or did they just now realize that it's not there? I don't know what this is, but...
well, I hope they bring it back, because it's definitely in the Outlook mobile experience.
I think they broke it. Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, it's just
with something.
Well, it's broken, and it's not as simple as revealing the button anymore.
Right. So I think maybe it's broken, and if you click the button, it didn't do anything or something. Anyway. So the suggestions are to use your mobile app.
Yeah.
Which this seems so weird that mobile app can do something now that the web app used to be anyway. Or you can use Find Time, which is what I actually use already. Most of the time, I use Find Time.
Yeah.
Myself.
And look, if you go through to additional information, learn more about how to share availability in the Outlook mobile. So do read that closely. It's not so much
Yes.
about the announcement itself as here's some more information about the workaround.
Yes.
And it takes you through to the lovely Accompli page about how to share that availability, which I think it's one of my favorite buttons. Really useful.
Right. Yeah. Does it work external?
What, the sharing of availability?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's all it does is you choose the slots that you want to make available to people, and it creates a nice little table at the bottom and says, "Here's the
Right.
time
Yep.
I'm available.
That's right.
Here's the time zone I'm in. Feel free to respond with a meeting invite to
Right.
match one
But
of
this,
those times."
but it's, with Find Time, it's a little bit more not dynamic, but you get to see
It's a
where, if
poll.
you're multiple people, right.
Mm,
But if it's multiple people, you can kind of see, well, wow, everyone's, no one's available when I'm available,
mm.
or, ooh, I could make that one work. If everyone else has voted that, I can vote or whatever. I think it's a little bit better than just sending my availability. Now, if it's just
Yeah.
one-on-one, that's different, right?
Yep.
So, sharing your availability, I think is great if it's just one-on-one. So,
Mm, mm.
Darrell, this for me, this was the second time that this support kind of look, this website you're looking at right here,
Yep.
showed up. We had one last week that was this way too. This is interesting. I feel like, with this, we go to additional information on these updates, and this is yet another place we could be taken to. We've been taken to dead links before. We've been taken to general landing pages like today with our Teams updates. We've been taken to tech community blog posts from 6 months ago, or
Yep.
yesterday.
Yep.
We've been taken to just whatever. This is yet another place we've been taken to. I find it interesting. I
Yeah.
just wanted to kind of say it's just interesting. We got yet another place we can go to.
Yeah, and it's still kind of named as Accompli, which is harkening back to the acquisition Microsoft made, buying that app and then folding it into the Outlook mobile app. If you've actually, if any of you have been involved in projects where you are rolling out Exchange to begin with as part of your foundational move to Office 365, you would have found quite a lack in end user material for what is that Outlook experience and how do I use it. Part of what prompted me to create a few videos, but this is actually some of the content that will appear on your mobile phone if that's where you use help from. You'll see that, which is why it kind of looks a bit weird. It will actually narrow down to the phone size and be all adaptive.
Which is great, but I just find it interesting that we've talked about this before. I love consistency, and this is just not consistent. And how am I, as a user, supposed to find this information? Right? If I'm in tech community, and we've been telling people, go to tech community, use tech community. This is your resource. Yet Teams doesn't even search it on the Teams landing website.
Yeah.
We don't even get it for this. I mean, I just feel like, and we've seen this with the blogs with Microsoft and everything else. It's just pick something and run with it. And every team within Microsoft runs with something
product
different.
group. Yep.
Product group. Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway,
it's right. It is the constant internal battle to keep up with the changes themselves. When it's coordinated right, the product is released, the support pages are ready there to be published. I do remember the days when stuff was getting published early in the support area, and you could find leaks in a sense of what was coming within days of when it was going to be released. But at least they've got that tidied up. Anyway, that's us for today, for this week. And
it is.
What have you got? Anything coming up, Daniel? Have you got any more events that you're heading off to?
I do, actually. In 2 weeks, headed to Las Vegas, Nevada, for the SharePoint conference. So that is May 20-ish.
You really
I
should
think
know because you're supposed to be
no, the
there.
conference is 21st through the 23rd, but
Yeah, yeah.
there's workshops and such, and so I'm doing an episode or uh, a session there called "Keeping Up with Change" in
Mm-hmm.
Office 365. So I would love to have everyone come to the event and come to my session. It will be on Thursday afternoon. Keeping Up with Change in Office 365, and you can use my last name as a discount code, Glenn discount code.
Nice, nice there. And should we do all the other discount codes for some of the other regarding 365 contributors?
Absolutely not. They can have their own show and plug their own stuff.
Nasty. Um, well, that's cool. And are you going to be also doing are we going to try and chime in and do a live episode from there at the same time?
I'd like to. So let's talk about that and see how we can work that out. So I'd like to try to do something, even if it's just even if we do an episode and then do some other stuff too. So yeah,
Cool.
we'll most certainly be doing regarding 365. We'll be at the SharePoint conference.
We won't have a booth, and as some of you have asked in the past,
Well, I
where's
need
your
a booth.
Where's your swag? We aren't a business. We are a community of
That's right.
like-minded people who tell stories about Microsoft 365, how to use it, what we're doing, how
We're here for
organizations might
you.
do stuff. Yeah.
We're here
But
for
if you
you.
want to visit our Patreon, which we don't have set up, never mind. Darrell, man,
Never-
behave. Darrell, behave. We'll let you go.
Oh, behave.
Oh, behave.
Okay,
All right.
let's do
Thanks
it. Let's
everyone
wrap
for
this
tuning
thing
in.
up.
Let's wrap it up. Yeah, definitely. It's getting a bit silly now. Okay. Enjoy and see you again next week. Bye for now.
Bye bye.